Are you sure you're ready for this? Victor Cole's voice cut through the afternoon air of the dojo, sharp and laced with amusement as he glanced down at Emily Carter, a quiet woman in her 40s wearing a simple gray tracksuit and worn sneakers. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now back to Emily. The dojo smelled faintly of liniment and polished wood, the sunlight streaming through tall windows highlighting the gleam on polished hardwood floors. She stepped quietly, almost ghost-like, her ponytail bouncing slightly with each step, eyes calm and unassuming, yet carrying a depth of focus that belied her understated appearance. Victor smirked, adjusting his black belt with gold trim, his presence commanding and slightly intimidating as a small crowd of students gathered along the edges of the mat, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed amusement. "I hope you don't mind a little demonstration," he continued, tilting his head as if testing her reaction, the hint of a challenge in his voice unmistakable. Emily merely nodded, hands loosely at her sides, and allowed her gaze to sweep across the room, taking in the positions of each student, the subtle creak of floorboards beneath shifting feet, and the rhythm of the afternoon sun warming the wooden panels. The room's energy pulsed, a quiet tension coiling in the air as Victor's smirk widened. "We'll see if you're just talk, or if you actually belong here." Laughter rippled from a few of the students, not loud, but sharp enough to make a point, and yet Emily remained utterly composed, her shoulders relaxed, breathing steady, a faint smile brushing her lips as if she had long anticipated this moment. Each movement, from the tilt of her head to the soft placement of her feet on the floor, exuded deliberate calm, a practiced ease that caught a few of the more attentive students off guard. She could hear Victor's footsteps echoing against the hardwood, the crisp slap of his palms against his own legs, the shuffle of sneakers from the sidelines, and she allowed herself a brief moment to absorb it all, letting the sensory impressions settle, forming a mental map of the dojo and its occupants. The subtle tension in the air was punctuated by the faint metallic ring of a clock from the hallway, marking the seconds until the inevitable challenge would begin. Emily's eyes flicked to Victor once more, noting the slight narrowing of his gaze and the imperceptible shift in his stance that suggested he expected her to hesitate, to falter, perhaps even to retreat. But she did not. Instead, she adjusted her posture, shoulders squared, hands loose yet ready, her calm exterior belying the decades of skill that had lain dormant, untested in such an obvious display. A hush fell over the room as Victor's smirk became more pronounced, his tone dripping with mock encouragement. "All right then, let's make this interesting. Don't hold back, Emily." And in that moment, as the camera of attention in the room tightened on her, the collective breath of students and instructors alike seemed to pause. The ordinary dojo transformed into an arena of anticipation, every eye fixed, every heartbeat slightly accelerated, and Emily Carter, the quiet woman who had walked in unnoticed, was about to step into the spotlight in a way that would leave an indelible impression, though none yet knew how profoundly the room would change in the next few moments. Emily Carter moved silently to the edge of the mat, her eyes scanning the space with quiet precision, noting the stance of each black belt and the subtle shifts in weight as they prepared for the upcoming demonstration. The dojo, bathed in warm afternoon light, carried the faint scent of polished wood and a lingering hint of liniment, a sensory reminder of countless hours spent mastering technique. Students shifted on the sidelines, some whispering to one another, others biting back smiles, their attention fixed on the unusual scene unfolding in front of them. Emily adjusted the hem of her gray tracksuit, a simple, unassuming gesture that contrasted sharply with the tense anticipation radiating from Victor Cole and his team. She had spent years moving through spaces unnoticed, blending into the background, and she had perfected the art of observing without drawing attention. Her eyes lingered on a particular pair of opponents, calculating their reach, noting the way their feet angled. On the polished wood, the rhythm of their breaths, the subtle cues that betrayed confidence or doubt. The murmurs of the students faded into a background hum as she centered herself, drawing in a slow, deliberate breath that expanded her chest and steadied her pulse. Every muscle, every nerve, seemed to settle into a quiet readiness, not with haste, but with the deliberate patience of someone who had trained in discipline for decades. Emily's mind replayed patterns she had refined over the years, sequences of movement that were precise yet fluid, taught not for display, but for mastery and control. She could feel the energy in the room shift, an almost imperceptible ripple as those watching began to sense that this was no ordinary sparring session. Victor's gaze flicked toward her, a subtle lift of an eyebrow signaling his curiosity mingled with skepticism, and Emily responded with nothing more than a calm, steady look, conveying an unspoken confidence that drew the room into a hush. The hardwood floors echoed faintly as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other, grounding herself, finding balance in both stance and breath, aware of every sound and motion around her. The sunlight streaming through the tall windows created a pattern of light and shadow that danced across her face and clothing, highlighting the simplicity of her appearance while failing to hint at the depth of skill and experience she carried within. Students began to lean forward slightly, sensing the contrast between the unassuming figure and the poised authority she radiated in that moment. Emily's hands rested lightly at her sides, her fingers curling almost imperceptibly as though testing the air, and she allowed a faint smile to curve her lips, a small acknowledgement of the challenge she was about to face. The energy of anticipation built subtly, not with noise, but with the quiet intensity of everyone in the room holding their collective breath, aware that something remarkable was about to unfold, though no one could yet predict the outcome. Each passing second was measured, deliberate, carrying weight and significance, a careful orchestration of silence and observation that amplified the tension without a single word being spoken. Emily took another measured breath, feeling the coolness of the air against her skin, the firmness of the mat beneath her feet, and the gentle warmth of the sunlight, all converging to create a moment suspended in time. She was ready, not with bravado, but with calm, controlled focus, a presence that commanded attention not through sound or motion, but through the quiet authority of a person wholly in command of herself and the space around her. As Victor and the other instructors exchanged subtle glances, the room seemed to contract and expand simultaneously, the ordinary routine of the dojo giving way to the extraordinary potential of the moment. Every eye trained on the simple woman whose quiet composure now defined the rhythm and atmosphere of the space. Victor Cole stepped back slightly, a faint smirk playing on his lips as he gestured toward the center of the mat, inviting Emily to move forward, fully expecting hesitation, but she did not. Her feet met the polished hardwood floor with quiet assurance, each step measured, controlled, and deliberate, echoing softly in the room that had grown unusually still. The students along the edges of the mat leaned forward, their eyes widening as they observed the contrast between Victor's imposing figure and Emily's calm, composed demeanor. The afternoon light poured in from the high windows, casting long streaks across the room and highlighting the subtle strength in her posture, the straight alignment of her back, and the relaxed, yet purposeful positioning of her hands at her sides. Victor's smirk faltered for a moment as he noticed the lack of apprehension in her gaze, a quiet confidence that suggested far more than mere physical presence. Emily scanned the dojo, her attention taking in the stance and positioning of each black belt, their hands poised, their weight balanced, the rhythm of their movements precise, but performed with an expectation that she would falter, that the quiet woman before them was a novice, a curiosity, nothing more. She allowed her mind to trace the patterns of movement, the subtle shifts of shoulders, the angles of elbows and knees, noting where momentum might be redirected, where timing might be exploited with finesse and control. Every breath she took was deliberate, expanding her chest fully and releasing slowly, drawing energy from the quiet patience she had honed over years of training in spaces unseen, often unnoticed, yet always disciplined. The soft shuffle of sneakers across the wooden floor, the faint scrape of mat against shoe, the rhythmic tapping of hands against thighs as Victor and his team adjusted their positions, all became a part of her awareness, a symphony of cues that would inform every movement she chose. A faint hum of anticipation traveled through the students, a ripple of curiosity as the ordinary pattern of practice shifted subtly to something more tense, more focused, without a single word being spoken. Emily's lips curved into a subtle, serene smile, not a taunt, but an acknowledgement of the moment and the challenge before her, her calm demeanor amplifying the contrast with the sharp, confident movements of Victor and the black belts. The dojo seemed to expand around her, the polished floors reflecting light in a way that highlighted her stillness, while every muscle beneath her tracksuit seemed engaged, ready, attuned to the space and the impending demonstration of skill. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly, betraying a hint of curiosity mingled with skepticism, and for the first time, a trace of uncertainty crossed his otherwise composed features. The students held their collective breath, every gaze locked on Emily, sensing the shift from a casual demonstration to something extraordinary, the quiet tension building as if the very air in the room had thickened with anticipation. Each heartbeat in the room seemed louder, more pronounced, echoing against the high ceilings, as Emily's measured stance conveyed a presence that was both understated and commanding, a silent assertion that she belonged here, fully aware, fully prepared, and quietly ready to turn expectation on its head. She shifted her weight slightly, aligning her feet with precision, hands still relaxed but subtly prepared, eyes scanning once more to confirm positions and angles, the room holding its breath, waiting for the moment when her quiet mastery would become evident and the ordinary would transform into the remarkable under the light of observation. Victor Cole shifted his weight slightly, the faint click of his shoes on the polished hardwood echoing through the dojo as he squared himself, fully expecting Emily Carter to falter at the first indication of movement. The students along the sidelines held their breath collectively, a mixture of curiosity and subtle apprehension rippling through the group as they watched the quiet woman poised at the center, her gray tracksuit blending effortlessly with the warm tones of the dojo, her ponytail swaying slightly as she adjusted her stance with understated precision. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, striking the polished floorboards and creating long, soft shadows that seemed to stretch toward Emily, highlighting the stillness in her posture while emphasizing the tension in the room. Victor's expression shifted imperceptibly, a flicker of interest crossing his features as he observed the controlled confidence she exuded, the quiet determination that suggested this was far from her first experience in such a setting, though none present had yet sensed the full extent of her capabilities. Emily's eyes moved methodically from one opponent to the next, noting their subtle shifts in balance, the angle of their feet, the way their shoulders were held, and the rhythm of their breaths, integrating each observation into an internal map of the space and the challenges that awaited. Her breathing remained steady, deep and measured, each inhalation and exhalation amplifying her awareness rather than distracting from it, as the room seemed to respond to her calm, expanding and contracting in sync with her measured steps. The faint murmur of students watching was now subdued, as if the room itself had recognized the quiet authority she projected, the contrast between her composed demeanor and the anticipation emanating from Victor and his team, creating a palpable tension that held everyone in suspension. Emily shifted her weight slightly, letting her gaze sweep across the dojo once more, absorbing the polished floor, the glint of sunlight, the subtle movements of observers, and the quiet sound of her own balanced steps, each one deliberate, measured, and in harmony with the energy of the space. She allowed a small, serene smile to curve her lips, not in mockery or provocation, but as a quiet acknowledgement of the preparation she had undertaken, the skill she had honed, and the moment she was about to define without fanfare. Victor exhaled slowly, the smirk on his face softening as he registered the absence of hesitation, the steady presence of Emily commanding the room in a manner that words could not convey. The students instinctively leaned forward, the air thickening with anticipation, as the ordinary dojo environment transformed into an arena of focus and quiet suspense, every eye fixed on Emily, every movement carrying significance, every subtle shift in posture communicating intent and readiness. She drew in a final deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin, the firmness of the hardwood beneath her feet, and the rhythm of her own heartbeat syncing with the collective attention of the room, a stillness that amplified the impact of every subtle gesture she would make in the moments to come, the ordinary poised to become extraordinary under the watchful eyes of those who had underestimated her. Emily Carter shifted slightly, her movements deliberate and measured, each step on the polished hardwood floor echoing softly as the students and instructors held their collective attention, their faces a mix of curiosity, anticipation, and subtle awe. Victor Cole's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, the smirk on his face faltering as he realized that the quiet confidence Emily exuded was not a fleeting gesture, but a tangible presence that filled the room. The afternoon sunlight continued to pour through the tall windows, casting long streaks across the floor and highlighting the contrast between her calm, understated posture and the tense energy of the black belts standing opposite her. Emily's gaze swept across each opponent, noting the subtle shifts in weight, the way their shoulders and arms were aligned, and the rhythm of their breathing, forming a precise mental map of the space and timing. Her body felt grounded, the contact of her feet with the floor solid, yet flexible, each movement controlled and deliberate, projecting an inner balance that was quietly commanding. The students along the sidelines instinctively leaned forward, sensing that the ordinary expectations of the dojo were shifting, that the quiet, unassuming woman in front of them was poised to demonstrate something extraordinary. Emily allowed a faint, serene smile to grace her lips, not in arrogance, but as a quiet acknowledgement of her preparation and the years of disciplined practice that had brought her to this moment. Victor Cole's hand gestured subtly, inviting the initiation of the exercise, and Emily responded with a calm, measured step forward, her eyes never leaving the subtle cues of her opponents, reading their intentions and adjusting with precision and grace. The room seemed to hold its breath, the polished floors reflecting the sunlight and the stillness in her movements amplifying the tension, each second stretched as if the space itself were aware of the significance of what was about to unfold. Every subtle shift in her posture, every micro-adjustment of her balance, communicated a depth of skill and awareness that had previously gone unnoticed, the ordinary exterior of her gray tracksuit and ponytail concealing years of refined training and disciplined mastery. The faint hum of anticipation among the observers became a tangible weight. In the room, a quiet chorus of attention that seemed to align with the rhythm of her controlled movements. Emily's focus remained absolute, attuned to the energy of the space, the subtle nuances of the black belt's stance and movement, the shift of light across the floor, and the faint echo of each breath, creating a layered awareness that allowed her to anticipate without haste, to react without force, and to command presence without a word spoken. As she prepared to engage, the dojo felt suspended in a delicate balance, every gaze fixed, every heartbeat slightly accelerated, and the ordinary pattern of practice had transformed into a moment of poised anticipation, a quiet stage set for the demonstration of skill and awareness that would captivate every observer and quietly redefine their perception of capability and control. Emily Carter took a measured step forward, her presence commanding the room without a word, the quiet confidence radiating from her demeanor capturing every gaze in the dojo. Victor Cole's eyes flicked briefly to the students, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and incredulity, before returning to Emily, who remained perfectly composed, her posture straight, shoulders relaxed, and hands at her sides as though the challenge before her was already understood. The sunlight streamed through the high windows, highlighting the subtle contours of her stance and casting soft shadows that mirrored the calm intensity she projected. Each student along the sidelines leaned slightly forward, the room holding a collective breath, as Emily's awareness expanded to every detail. The polished floors beneath her feet, the faint creak of the wood as Victor shifted his weight, the soft shuffle of sneakers, and the rhythmic cadence of the air around her. She allowed herself a brief, deliberate survey of the black belts before her, noting the angle of their elbows, the distribution of their weight, the subtle cues that suggested timing and readiness, integrating each observation seamlessly into a mental map of the space. A faint smile curved her lips, serene and unassuming, reflecting not pride, but the quiet satisfaction of someone who has prepared meticulously and understands the depth of her own capability. The energy in the dojo shifted, an almost imperceptible ripple spreading through the students and instructors as the tension that had built over the preceding minutes reached a concentrated peak. Every sound, every shift in balance, became a part of Emily's heightened awareness, informing her calm, precise adjustments and reinforcing her readiness. Victor's expression tightened subtly, the faintest sign of unease crossing his features as he recognized that Emily's composure was not a lack of understanding, but a profound control of herself and the space around her. The students' murmurs faded into silence, each observer drawn into the anticipation of what was about to unfold, sensing that the ordinary assumptions of ability and dominance were poised to be challenged. Emily shifted her weight with careful precision, aligning her feet with intention, allowing her breathing to maintain a steady, calming rhythm, and positioning her hands in subtle preparation, all while maintaining a serene, composed gaze that conveyed authority without aggression. The polished hardwood reflected the sunlight and the stillness of the room, amplifying the quiet tension, each step and breath deliberate, a testament to the control and mastery she had cultivated over years of disciplined training. The room seemed to pause with her, every observer attuned to the nuances of her movement, the quiet but undeniable presence she carried, and the sense of focus and anticipation that drew attention without a single sound being spoken. Victor Cole exhaled slowly, a trace of acknowledgement flickering across his face as he recognized that the quiet woman before him possessed a command of the environment and her own skill that no words could convey, that the ordinary and the expected had quietly given way to the extraordinary through her steady, deliberate preparation, and that in the stillness of the dojo, the first moments of the demonstration had set the stage for an unforgettable revelation of precision, control, and unwavering presence. Emily Carter moved with a fluid, deliberate grace, her actions precise and measured as she engaged with the sequence of challenges before her, each movement reflecting years of disciplined practice and a profound understanding of balance, timing, and spatial awareness. The polished hardwood beneath her feet seemed to respond to her steps, each subtle shift amplifying the sense of control she exerted over the space, while the afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, creating a warm, golden glow that highlighted the elegance of her movements. Victor Cole watched closely, his expression a mixture of fascination and disbelief, as the quiet woman he had underestimated navigated the dojo with calm authority, reading the positions and intentions of every participant with a clarity that seemed almost preternatural. Students along the sidelines held their collective breath, captivated by the contrast between the understated simplicity of her gray tracksuit and the undeniable command she projected, sensing that what they were witnessing was far beyond the ordinary expectations of a typical sparring demonstration. Emily's eyes tracked the subtle shifts in posture, the nuanced tilts of heads and alignment of shoulders, integrating each observation into a seamless understanding that guided her every measured step. Her breathing remained steady, deep and controlled, amplifying her awareness rather than distracting from it, and each exhalation seemed to resonate through the room with quiet authority. The faint hum of anticipation from the onlookers faded into a taut silence, the collective focus intensifying as Emily prepared to demonstrate her capability in a way that required neither force nor spectacle, but a masterful orchestration of precision, awareness, and timing. Victor's posture tightened slightly, a trace of uncertainty crossing his face as he recognized the depth of skill before him, and the students instinctively leaned forward, drawn by the quiet intensity of her presence. Emily adjusted the alignment of her feet, her hands subtly poised at her sides, eyes scanning the space for micro-movements, and a serene confidence radiated from her that communicated authority without aggression, control without tension, and mastery without arrogance. Every small shift, every deliberate step, carried significance, a testament to the years of training and the disciplined patience that had prepared her for this precise moment. The room seemed to expand and contract with her movements, every observer acutely aware of the energy she projected, the focused calm that contrasted with the tension and anticipation surrounding her, and the ordinary dynamics of the dojo were transformed into a space of extraordinary attention and heightened expectation. The sunlight highlighted the contours of her posture and the subtle motions of her limbs, reflecting off the polished floors and casting shadows that accentuated the controlled elegance of her stance. Emily's slight smile was calm and unassuming, conveying a quiet acknowledgement of the challenge and an inner certainty that had been cultivated through countless hours of disciplined practice. The black belts shifted their weight, exchanged fleeting glances, and adjusted their positions. Yet every adjustment seemed to only reinforce Emily's composed dominance of the moment. The students' eyes remained wide, the collective silence emphasizing the significance of the unfolding demonstration, the extraordinary precision, focus, and command that Emily exhibited capturing the attention of every person in the room, quietly yet unmistakably redefining their perception of what it meant to possess skill, control, and presence within the dojo. As Emily Carter advanced across the mat, her movements remained fluid and composed, each step precise, deliberate, and perfectly balanced, commanding the attention of everyone in the dojo without a single word. The students along the sidelines leaned forward, their expressions a mixture of astonishment and quiet admiration as they watched the simple woman, so unassuming in her gray tracksuit and worn sneakers, navigate the space with an elegance and precision that seemed to transcend ordinary expectation. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, catching the subtle angles of her posture and the rhythmic motion of her hands and feet, casting gentle shadows across the polished hardwood floor that emphasized the quiet authority of her presence. Victor Cole's expression shifted, his initial smirk replaced by a furrow of concentration, an acknowledgement flickering in his eyes that Emily was far more capable than he had anticipated. She moved with the awareness of someone who had long studied not just technique, but the flow of energy, the timing and spacing of each potential interaction, adjusting minutely to the subtle shifts of weight and stance of the black belts around her. The room held its collective breath, the faint sounds of shifting feet, rustling clothing, and shallow exhalations barely audible over the silent intensity that had settled over the dojo. Every step Emily took was measured, each micro-adjustment of balance and posture conveying mastery without aggression, authority without intimidation, and control without ostentation. The students' eyes followed her every movement, drawn into the unspoken rhythm she established. The ordinary environment of the dojo transformed into a space where precision, awareness, and quiet power defined the tempo. Victor's gaze remained fixed on her, noting the calm assurance in her eyes, the subtle strength in her stance, and the measured grace of each motion. The contrast between her unassuming appearance and undeniable competence impossible to ignore. Emily's lips curved into a faint, serene smile, a quiet reflection of her focus and preparation, as if acknowledging the anticipation of the room while maintaining complete composure. The polished floor beneath her reflected the shifting light and shadows, amplifying the visual rhythm of her movements, and the students instinctively mirrored the intensity, their collective attention magnifying the sense of suspense and anticipation. Emily's awareness extended to every detail of the space, from the faint hum of the air conditioning to the delicate shifting of her opponent's weight, integrating each sensory input into her seamless execution of poised readiness. The room seemed to hold its breath in tandem with her own measured rhythm, every observer acutely conscious of the extraordinary skill and quiet confidence she projected, transforming the ordinary practice hall into an arena of heightened perception and anticipation. Victor shifted slightly, the subtle tension in his shoulders betraying a growing respect and the recognition that Emily's calm command of the dojo was both real and compelling. The quiet woman he had underestimated now occupying a space of undeniable authority and poised capability. The sunlight illuminated the contours of her posture, the alignment of her limbs, and the subtle, deliberate adjustments that conveyed mastery, while the students and instructors absorbed the sight, caught between awe and disbelief, witnessing the unfolding demonstration of control, focus, and presence that would leave an indelible impression in the dojo long after the moment had passed. The room remained silent as Emily Carter stood at the center of the dojo, her calm presence radiating a quiet authority that seemed to settle over every observer. Victor Cole's usual confidence had softened into measured attention, his eyes tracing her movements with a growing acknowledgement of her capability, the subtle shift in his posture revealing a recognition that the quiet woman before him was not merely competent, but exceptional. The sunlight from the high windows highlighted the elegance of her stance, the straight alignment of her back, and the steady rhythm of her breathing, casting long, soft shadows across the polished hardwood floor that accentuated the controlled grace of her movements. Students and instructors alike exchanged glances, their initial skepticism giving way to admiration and a dawning understanding of the skill Emily had brought to the mat. Every small adjustment she made, every deliberate shift in weight or focus, reinforced the impression of mastery, the understated strength she carried projecting an unspoken lesson in precision, awareness, and presence. Victor's lips pressed into a thin line, the faintest flicker of a smile betraying his respect, and the students leaned forward ever so slightly, caught in the magnetic tension of the moment, fully engaged and silently acknowledging the quiet power in Emily's controlled movements. The room's ambient sounds, soft steps, the faint scrape of sneakers on wood, and the shallow breaths of those watching, merged into a background hum that highlighted the contrast between her serene composure and the tension around her, amplifying the sense of anticipation and the weight of her demonstration. Emily's gaze swept across the dojo, noting the subtle cues from each participant, integrating each observation seamlessly into her actions, and her slight, serene smile reflected both her confidence and her awareness of the transformation occurring in the perception of the observers. The polished floorboards mirrored the light and shadows of the room, emphasizing the clarity and precision of her stance, while the gentle illumination highlighted her calm composure, drawing attention to the subtle strength she exhibited without a single overt display of dominance. The students' expressions ranged from awe to disbelief, captivated by the way she commanded the space and the energy of the room, each observer realizing that the quiet, unassuming woman they had underestimated was demonstrating an extraordinary command of skill, focus, and presence that transcended ordinary expectation. Emily's movements, though restrained and deliberate, carried an undeniable clarity and mastery that conveyed competence and quiet authority, reshaping the room's dynamic as the observers' respect and attention became fully aligned with her presence. Victor Cole exhaled softly, the air shifting subtly with the acknowledgement that Emily's calm control, precision, and measured execution had transformed the ordinary dojo into a space where quiet strength, focus, and expertise commanded attention and respect, leaving every observer with a lasting impression of skill, discipline, and composed mastery that would linger far beyond the final moments of the demonstration.